Dave, it's me, Dave. I know you want to shimmy in the sun with all your friends, but right now, seriously, don't. Hang out from home, where pants are optional. You can do it for America.
You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Los cuatro rudos, ídolos de la afición, la arena estaba de bote en bote, la gente loca de la emoción. Vienen y luchaban los cuatro rudos, ídolos de la afición. El canto está verdadero, crucemos y el mundo, el canto está.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lucha Weekly podcast. This is the podcast that talks all about the latest world of Lucha Libre. We recap events and shows from the top Lucha Libre promotions like AAA, as well as independent promotions around Mexico and the U.S., and as well, along with the luchador-related news from WWE, AEW, MLW, Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, and beyond. Well, the Lucha Central Weekly podcast is a part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com, your ultimate destination for all things Lucha Libre. Now, I don't do the show alone. We are a trio. We are a Lucha Central Weekly podcast. So let me bring the other two members of this team. I should introduce myself. I'm Miranda Morales, one of the co-hosts of this show. But let me bring in Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty great so far. We've had beautiful weather. I've been really enjoying it. It's been nice to be outside. Everything's been great. That
is awesome. And our third co-host, last but certainly not least, Brendan Barr. How are you?
I'm doing great. And after you calling us a trios, I feel like we need a trio's name at this point.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we'll work on it. This is only just a few weeks into the official Lucha Central Weekly podcast. But I mean, what's a Lucha podcast without a trio's name?
Super true. Every good trio needs the name. It's what makes the group cohesive.
Right?
So that's all.
Los Lucha Centrals.
Yes. Well, hey, we'll give our shout-outs to our social medias a little bit later on, and people can suggest names for our trios group. I'm definitely about collaborative and creative. Some of the best things that I've seen out there have been fan-suggested. So if anyone has any suggestions on our trios' names, we would love to hear them. Definitely. So
absolutely.
I want to get into something we've been meaning to talk about for a few weeks now, but haven't had the chance. There's a trend going on the whole COVID, and that's surgical. Who knew in 2020 that surgical masks would be a thing? But here we are, Lucha Libre. There's some crossover because there's been some really awesome created that highlight really big crossover. You know, staying safe and stylish. Actually, you know what? Brendan, go ahead and you talk about your experience a little bit with the surgical mask trend, because you've been both of you and Dusty have been the experts on this, but I know you've been really eager to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, as I said in our conversation, I set out at the end of 2019 to increase my mask collection, but I didn't know it was going to look like this. There have been so many great lucha products that have come out. We've had Pro Wrestling Revolution has done some as fundraisers. We've had Taya released some last week. I know you got some of that collection, Miranda, and I personally got some from Ray Leone, who's making them in his own style, and then I'm finding now more and more brands are putting it out there. Like I saw some with logos on them, and I'm not going to say which logos because if I say the wrong company, somebody's going to get upset that I didn't mention their company's logoed ones out there. But I have seen, Wall Street Journal is even calling the mask the new concert T-shirt for the year 2020. So that means you're looking at a piece of history, and the luchadors have been doing it wearing masks forever. So it certainly seems like this is a piece of real and authentic history.
Yeah, I ordered the Lucha Brothers came out with the set, Pentagon and Phoenix. I ordered the set I got from my son and I. I got the Phoenix, he got the Pentagon. And they're just, the style and the craftsmanship is so high on these compared to the ones you can find around that I'm constantly impressed with how inventive they're becoming with the patterns, the stitching, and the detail work. And some of them have just the mouth of the mask. Some of them have the whole mask. And it's really interesting how they're kind of evolving even since they started. You know, you see masks, like much more masks than you did even a few weeks ago. And so I think it's interesting the way mask making is evolving and shows that it'll always, you know, be prevalent and will evolve with the time.
Absolutely. It's a subject we'll definitely talk about in the future. But we actually want to start the show with a big treat for us, not only on the podcast, but hopefully for everyone listening. We have a very special guest join on this week's show. Definitely a dream for myself, Brendan, and Dusty, of someone that we've been really watching for many years along the scene of Lucha Libre, but someone that we kind of just briefly talked about in the past. We are really excited to Central Weekly podcast, one of the most entertaining pro wrestlers today, coming to us courtesy Impact Wrestling. He's not only a staple of the West Coast, not only known throughout the country, but has become a fan favorite all over the world. You've seen him on Lucha Underground, Trash Lucha Libre, and he is the current Impact Wrestling X Division champion, Willie Mack. Willie, thank you so much for joining us on the Lucha Central Weekly podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
We as a trio were talking about some of our favorite wrestlers just last week offline, and your name came up because you are such an incredible hybrid of wrestling with your background and training, but also just your performance level. I mentioned are extremely entertaining to watch. But your skill set is undeniable. I've been wondering, and all of us have actually been wondering, if you'd be willing to share with us a little bit more about your background and training in pro wrestling.
Well, my background is I started in Lucha Libre. That's the first thing I learned when I started training. And then I learned the American style and Japanese style right after that, because once you learn Lucha, everything else is...
It's true enough. Lucha seems like it has a much higher learning curve than the rest, especially for some of us bigger fellows, right?
Yeah, I guess so, because being in there with those little luchadors, you had to keep up in class, so I don't want to slow them down, so I kept up with them.
You mentioned Lucha Libre was a style of training and learning wrestling. Was there any one in particular, any lore that inspired you were beginning to train?
Oh, of course. Rey Mysterio, La Parka, maybe Psychosis, of course, too, and Juventud a little bit. Oh, and Super Kendo.
Wonderful. That's a great list of guys. They're all favorites of mine. That's a list that I'm sure now people will have you on. So that's fantastic.
How do you think that your training in Lucha Libre and your past and experience and that background helped you become the X Division champion with Impact?
Well, you look at the X Division, it's a hybrid division. I guess my Lucha Libre style is a little bit on that same level, like it's fast-paced, you can adjust to anything, and then you got the hard-hitting strikes and stuff that I do, so it fits in perfect with everything that they're looking for in the X Division athlete.
Absolutely. I cannot express easily how excited I was when I saw you in the X Division for the first time, because you are exactly what I felt that is all about. You're that hybrid style, that no limits going on, all out type of match. Have you had any favorite opponents in the X Division so far?
Yeah, my homie Rich Swan. We had a good one. I debuted with Impact. He'll be a good one. And Ace Austin, the one who I took the title from, he was a good one too.
And you mentioned people that you've already faced within the X division, and prior to Impact, again, I mean, you've been a staple all over the coast, all over the U.S., and there's some people that you face around the independent circuit and, again, in Impact. Can you let us know what's been any major differences between facing, say, like a Joey Ryan out and then in an Impact ring? Has there been any big difference in either wrestling style or just the stage that you're on?
No, not really, because I don't perform the way I know how. If I'm on TV or at an independent show, I'm going to go out there and money's worth, because I know they paid to see me, and I ain't going to let them think their money went to waste when I'm in the...
Absolutely. I was in Dallas at Hard to Kill when you single-handedly faced the North. And that match in particular blew me away because not only of your athleticism, but, I mean, you were there for the show, but the show, just how amazing you were against one of the best tag teams in the industry right now. How do you test your ability to face such big odd situations?
Well, I knew it was going to happen at some point, and I just muscled up the strength and said, you know what, I might not win it, but I'm going to make them fight for it. So I had to get in there, believe in myself, do what I knew how to do. Even though I didn't come out with the victory, I guess I had a lot of that night, and people were like, oh, I guess this dude ain't too bad after all.
Yeah, there were moments throughout that match that I thought, you were going to win. You were able to handle, that team as not only as best as you could, but again, with just the blend wrestling of Lucha Libre. I mean, you really have one of the most unique styles out in pro wrestling. You mentioned that your original training was in Lucha Libre and something that inspired you. Why other styles to learn out of all of the maneuvers that you can learn? What really drew you to Lucha Libre in the first place?
Why not Lucha Libre? You see the cool mask and the outfits they have and them flashy moves, and like they do stuff that I ain't never seen before, especially when I was watching as a kid. WCW, you went in for the heavyweights, but was really there, and the cruiserweights was pretty much luchadors.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Those were my favorite memories.
You knew once you saw Rey Mysterio and Psychosis in there, you were about to see something special.
So, Willie, how come we never see you in a mask? Why did you not pursue the masked route? Well,
simple. Promoter, I told him to make me a mask because he knew how to make masks. He said, with your face, we don't want to hide it. That's your money maker. What the hell? I guess it's true. Because he said people want to see your facial expression or reaction, I guess. I have good reactions, but I don't know what's going on because I wasn't doing the wrestling. I can't see my own damn face.
Everyone's face of the expressions of face are really entertaining only because you can see everything that you do. I think not only the crowd is amazed, but the expressions that you have, a lot of, even your high flymen, the expressions that you have are really, you make it so effortless. That I think we're just all in shock. But you know what? You got a good little face, man. Why hide it?
Yeah, I don't know. One day, maybe, probably as a special entry, maybe. I'm thinking about her.
Oh yeah, there we go. We got a lead in right there. Someday we're gonna see a Willie Mack mask coming out to ringside.
Who are you most excited about facing next?
Any and everybody, to be honest. Because like I said plenty of times on other shows, I like to wrestle Eddie Edwards. That'll probably be a good one. Him, Rohit Raju, Chris Bay currently probably. And I like to get in there with Jake Christie because he is a...
That would be amazing.
The X Division, world renowned of the products of the X Division over the years, but the current talent right now, it really is in a new chapter, including the new blood that's come to Chris Bay, who faced recently. He's also come out with a new attitude to you and to the X Division. Do you think it's necessary when you're in such a competitive division that you have to approach your style a little different?
No, not really. It's just like I think he has like that new kid at school complex. If you show up to school, you're from high school, so you try to act cool and play it off like that. I think you're going through that phase. But don't worry, I'll be there to put him in his place.
I don't doubt it for a second. I mean, you already have. You've already beaten, but it sounds like this chapter hasn't quite ended yet. And you've hit a really big milestone career with being X Division champion. What do you hope your legacy is?
I just hope it's something that people will remember, not just like, oh, he had the title. That's about it. Be like, no, I defended it. I brought it back to the X Division, and I held it up well and proved that I was deserving to be at the top of it.
Well, you absolutely have brought attention back to the X Division for me. It is a division that, as I mentioned before, I've always excited to see, but I really had a renewed vigor for it when you started wrestling in the division. I'm very excited to see a little more of you, as you put it, with Chris Bay and putting him, reminding him in the place, because I think that's going to be a fun and special feud that may be part of your legacy for years to come too. I think the two of you have a really good mix together. But do you have anyone in all of Impact that you think might bring something special out of you, or might be part of that next level of match for you?
Well, I already wrestled him once, but I want to get at him. It didn't turn out the way I wanted. It's Moose.
I mean, talking about people who are trying to make a big impression and impact, he's going around now with his TNA Heavyweight Championship belt, trying to prove a point as well. So, do you think you could put him in his place?
Given the right time, yeah, the self-proclaimed TNA champion. He has defended it like twice, so I guess it's back in circulation. But it looks like I'm technically the only Impact champion you see on the shows now. So,
what would you consider like the craziest moment in your career so far? Like the one big Willie Mack moment in all of your career?
Besides winning the X Division title, I guess. Yeah, that's one of them. And then I guess beating Will Marquez at Ultima Lucha. Yeah, because I got all bloody and whatnot, and I still went out there and did the thing with him, and I'm still alive.
Yes, the world needs some Willie Mack in the world. We still need it. So I'm very glad that you are alive. But we're very X-Division champion and all of the accomplishments that you've had. But especially in the world of Lucha Libre, you've been someone that has brought in some mainstream fans that have been able to bring that to the forefront to people who have never watched it. So thank you, because that's a big testament to you as a wrestler, as a performer, but also your ability to cross over into multiple formats.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Because my first time going to Mexico, I thought people was going to eat me alive, but they didn't care if I was black, fat, or whatever. As long as I know how to do lucha, they didn't know who I was. But after my match was over, I thought glitter was hitting me in my head until I felt it. I was like, what's that? And it was pesos, and I guess they liked it so much. They threw pesos and it was at a real cowpoint.
In your first match in Mexico?
Yeah. I still got them inside my little coins, because every time I go to a different country, I always collect the currency. So every time people throw pesos and I try not to spend them, I just keep them in a little bundle, even though it's money, but I'm like,
Well, Willie, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. Everyone can check out Willie Mack on Impact Wrestling Tuesdays on Access TV, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. You can also watch some previous matches on Impact Plus, which you can find on impactplus.tv. Willie, you can be found on social media at Twitter, correct? At Willie_Mack, and on Facebook at WillieMack1.
And then my Instagram is the same thing, Willie_Mack. So go over there and hit me up and see what I'm doing next.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us on the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. We hope to have you back soon. We'd love to hear about your journeys and adventure in Lucha Libre. Hopefully you're still the Impact X Division champion by then. Who's the longest run?
That'll be a dream come true. Ain't too many people helped it long.
I'm going to knock on wood right now for you, just to make sure. For joining us. Have a wonderful evening. Well, that was we had the X Division champion, current reigning and defending Willie Mack. A fantastic way to start this week's show.
That brings us to a new story that I'm excited to talk about. On last week's Keeping It 100, Conan had mentioned casually that there's a roadmap ahead, and the more I've poked around and the more I've looked at this, the road to having actual shows is getting a lot clearer. It's not closer, but it's clearer. People have a better idea on the timeline. It's in Mexico, it's looking like you could have empty arena shows as early as mid-July, and you can up here. We already have a timeline related to what our governor has tossed down for at least a couple of the independent promotions. We're going to start training when we reach what they call Phase 3, where we can have people together in small groups doing things as long as we're pre-screening. So we're going to have workouts and conditioning classes that are going to be a little more organized and contained. And I imagine that is a little bit of what was being alluded to by Conan. I do have to offer the counterpoint, because also in the news this week you had Tinny Ablis talking about he doesn't feel that shows are going to be effective while we may medically be released. He seems to feel that it wouldn't be cost effective for many of the smaller promotions to have shows with restrictions in place. So that is an article that's floating around. I think I can get it linked up on my Twitter, but it's in Spanish, so it was a bit hard for me to get a good translation. Do either of you have any thoughts on this?
I read the same article, and I read a couple of others. One, the Cubs fan, through his website, and it looked to me like it would be early August before they would be able to start running shows with any kind of crowd. But I have no idea what that will mean for like Triple Mania, because that was supposed to be, I believe, August 22nd. And
correct.
So if they start in August, is that enough time to build up? So
that will depend a lot on the prep. So like I mentioned, we're building towards making sure the athletes are prepared during the earlier phases before we can have a show. I'm certain that is part of what's being alluded to as well, is that people are conditioning and training and maybe working in 1s and 2s or 3s and 4s depending on the scenarios. But that August 22nd is really cutting it close, and a lot of people have definitely looked at that and are expressed concern. The general consensus seems to be that AAA will be a little quieter about it as long as they can, because rescheduling the show 2 or 3 times is going to be a big momentum killer. So if you let it go as long as you can,
there's
and then
no
do
reason
one more reschedule.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point in general about what promotions are challenged with right now as far as planning ahead. How far do they head? What do they announce? Because I've seen also in general promotions who were trying to plan for things in June, July, August, now having to reevaluate, postpone those or reschedule. And that goes back to the idea of momentum, building that momentum and trying to gain that fan base back and just reeling them in. Sometimes you lose a fan, stop and go, so you don't want to do that too often, but some companies are really eager to come back as soon as possible, and wrestling fans eager to watch something as soon as possible. So this is something that has long-term implications, not just over the next few months, but, throughout the rest of this year, as, when is the right time to do a show. And a lot of companies as well, you talked about the Tenablis article, with companies really having to evaluate financially what's it worth in a show. There's a lot more precautions that are needed now with sanitation, with crowd control, with maybe insurance on buildings, other things that wouldn't have been an issue a few months ago, but now are vital in order to care for the safety of the performers and the audience, which then usually adds more money. And then, where does that money come from? Does that get put on to the ticket holder? Do you work on streaming? It seems like a very interesting but also complex time now for any promotion and promoters, what their timetable looks like to go back to shows.
Yeah, and you mentioned the money and the ticket holders. There's an added complication in that you're going to, if you want to be in good conscience, you have to sell fewer tickets than you normally would. A venue that normally holds, like Conan talked about this, he's prepared to go as low as like 1/4 of what normally the venue would hold, and that means that you can't rely on ticket sales to carry those additional costs that you're referencing there. They've got to find another way to monetize things. And as fans, we are generally very, very supportive, and we will buy. I mean, we're buying COVID masks right now to support our favorite independent wrestlers. So we will we'll buy merch, but there's only so much of that you can rely on as a promoter, because you're always competing for that same $20 bill that's in everybody's pocket. Just to use that as an example.
And you can't even offer meet and greets right now in good conscience to try to help add a little extra to ticket money and everything. That's a big moneymaker for a lot of promotions. But right now, I just don't see how they could offer the COVID situation. And because everybody wants that picture and wants to shake their hand, I just don't see it being feasible at this point in time.
We're definitely seeing an evolution, and not only merchandise. I mean, you brought up a good point in what we were talking about in the beginning of the show. You know, masks are becoming a big item for luchadors, as far as, protection masks. And all pro wrestlers, we're seeing that a lot more too on the independent scene, but it's been really great to see that crossover in Lucha Libre, but also how being presented with Conan and AAA having a live stream of shows. That could be something that we see more often of empty arena shows, but they're live streamed online. That's a huge investment to do that, and how do you monetize it? Those are all things too that promotions have to be mindful of. But that push in order to run is running shows that are streamed online, and that's how fans enjoy it. But then you have to wait how you have the fan interaction. AAA, the Lucha Fighter series, really pushed social media as ways to engage the fans through Twitter, through Facebook, and I think those were elements because that was a way to bring fans and feel more involved in ways that you weren't going to be able to by not having an audience. So strictly as well, how do you enough to want to see a live stream and also see how they can impact on the show? Again, did that too, where fans are able to vote on luchadors and who appeared, and that could be a really fun aspect of it, a la, old school WWE, Cyber Sunday, Cyber Tuesday. Who knows? That could be an element that more promotions utilize. But I think AAA did show how successful incorporating digital element into shows.
It's funny to me that you referenced the cyber events that WWE did, because I was always excited by them more conceptually than in execution, whereas I did not have that feeling with the AAA event. I felt like they used social media and digital presence in a way that excited me more and made me feel like I was more part of the presentation, whereas I felt with the WWE version that they more or less had an outcome that they wanted and kind of pushed the voting that direction anyway.
Yeah, that's how I always felt with the Cyber, was that they didn't really listen to the fans. If it wasn't outright rigged, they absolutely tried to push someone. There was obviously a choice they wanted people to pick. But WCW, with their Wheel of Whatever, I believe it was called, where they'd spin it, you didn't know what kind of match you'd get. I guess that was for real, and that was always kind of fun, but you'd end up with some real funky, strange matches. So I think that allowing the fans to vote is a great idea on media, especially to start to settle in for how many people like the AAA did with the tournament. I think AAA's done everything right. So far, they showed how they cleaned the match, how everything was sterilized, so that you felt good about watching it. I didn't mind the crowd noise. I think if they could figure out a way to do that via fan voting, boos versus cheers versus, general crowd noise, that would be really cool, with live fans watching, interact one way or another, and then they would kind of pipe in the result.
I did have an idea on that. Based on the way that they did the Facebook matches on the WWE was doing Facebook matches where you had the chat going off to one side, and you would have emotes float across the screen, And I had thought about that, where you could have, for the number of emotes that were happening, you could have, it's still canned noise, but you could have crowd noise being kind of pumped in as the crowd in the chat is reacting to things.
Exactly, and I think that would be so interesting. If nothing else, it would be interesting to see the first time how it works, and if it worked, it was great, and if it didn't, I mean, at least we'll tune in to see how it works the first time.
Right.
I just think it should be worth trying.
Well, we certainly are going to have a little more time to experiment with it, but anything can happen in that time. I look forward to experimenting, but I definitely want to see a little more of a return to shows the way that I used to.
Definitely. And speaking of big shows that just aren't the way we used to see them, Double or Nothing be held without a crowd. It's coming Saturday, the 23rd. This Saturday, the 23rd. Anyways, Double or Nothing. It's be live from Daly's in Jacksonville. No crowd, obviously. But one of the obvious highlights of the match, Casino Ladder match. This is where we're going to see the most lucha action, at least as far as we know so far. The lineup will include a mystery opponent in the ladder match, but the lineup also Darby Allin, Cabana, Orange Cassidy, Ray Phoenix, maybe with some rivals to the match there, Scorpio Sky, Kip Sabian, Frankie Kazarian, Luchasaurus, and again our mystery opponent. And last year at Double or Nothing, we got a huge debut with Jon Moxley. And so I've got a couple of questions for you guys that will probably tie into each other. Who do you think the mystery contender will be? And who do you think will win based on your prediction of the mystery contender? I've got a couple of ideas, but I would love what you guys are thinking. Miranda, do you want to start us off?
Oh yes, it's a hard question because we're in such a unprecedented time in wrestling where we just saw a lot of people being let go by WWE. I don't think the logistics of their agreements have been released regarding their no compete clauses and contracts and things like that. If they have to wait, if they don't have to wait, and of course, there's just AEW is building a lot of relations with lots of independent promotions and wrestling. So to me, it feels like it's a way for introduce someone new. But you know what? It's hard for me to think about that. He new coming into the company. I know there were rumors about, it could be someone who was recently let go, like a Gulak, but also, again, with the relationship that the company has with people from, all over. I don't know. I think in the Lucha, after watching his matches the past few weeks, in a Lucha scenario would love an Hijo de Vikingo to be in it because seeing his matches over the last few weeks, I know that's a big long shot, but it would be an awesome way to introduce someone like him into the world.
Gosh,
so that's
definitely
incredible. On the fantasy booking side. But they may who's already on the roster. I actually thought it made Sean Spears, but this week they already booked him in a match with Rhodes. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I would have loved to have Pac on there, but I think for logistical reasons he's not going to be able to attend. But those are a few thoughts.
Right. Brendan, what are your thoughts? Who do you think the mystery contender is going to be, and who do you think might win based on your choice of contender?
Well, so I have to go around this a little differently. Traditionally, in this kind of match, when you've got, as you referenced last year, you had Jon Moxley making a tremendous debut. When you've got a surprise wrestler, they're always part of even if they don't win, they're always part of the bigger end of the match. So you've got that person is casting a huge shadow over it. And to Miranda's point, like a lot of people are very openly speculating Drew Gulak could walk right over there because he's one of the few wrestlers whose contract negotiation we know. We know that his contract fully expired, so he no longer has a no compete clause. But you could also get someone. AEW has a number of deals and kind of oars in the water internationally with New Japan and with Mexico, and I'm not sure off the top of my head who from Mexico would be there, but I was leaning more towards somebody from New Japan's LA Dojo, someone that would kind of cement that relationship a little more, and then have a little more of a strong impact, but not necessarily be immediately thrust into the main event picture.
Yeah, that would be incredible, and it would be an interesting way to bridge those companies and show a lot of faith between the companies on a major stage.
And it helps New Japan maintain that United States presence that they're definitely going to be struggling with a little more right now.
Yeah, I would love to see Jeff Cobb. He's a big guy, but think of how amazing that would be, right? That's the name that, if I could pick a name, that would be the match. He's big, but he moves so gracefully. Everything he does is fluid and swift and effortless. And I think he would be a huge addition to AEW. I think used sparingly like they could, he would be a huge deal. This way they could have him show up and challenge for the title sometime and pull him out when they need him. They don't have to have something for him right now. It gives him something to do later. And again, he could take us by surprise later, and that would be awesome. And I think that fantasy booking, winner, that's who I would just Jeff Cobb.
That's a great choice, and I can say from tons of times that I've seen it, he is always amazing with the surprise thing. He knows how to milk being the surprise entrance into a thing. He's always got the huge presence, and it immediately escalates the whole energy in a room when you realize this big guy who can also move. I mean, we gave Willie that credit, but Jeff Cobb also is fast and flies. Yeah, that would be a fantastic pick for especially for a ladder match, because he can do some things with a ladder that will turn a lot of heads to that product.
I think so too. Agreed. Go ahead, Miranda.
I totally agreed. They've already introduced him before, so it actually would make great sense for them to bring him back in this capacity. And also really interesting to see how they do that in maybe wrestlers who come in and out of AEW. Maybe they're not full-time. Maybe they come in once every few months, but they are able to strong impact and impression with viewers.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be so memorable, and everybody's mentioned big guy at that size. You don't forget a moment like that when he comes out. I think just strength-wise, some of the damage he could do to the other participants with the ladder would be interesting. I also think we're going to see some interesting evolution in the feud between Orange Cassidy and Rey Fénix in the ladder match. They're both entrants. I don't see either one of them winning, but, Fénix has gotten the best Orange Cassidy twice now. First with the Loon King kick out of nowhere, and then this most recent week on Dynamite, he got the win. And I just think that we're going to see an evolution of that, but not necessarily a completion of that. Do you guys think that this is just a stepping stone? Yeah. Go ahead.
I think that those two are absolutely. It's still on the table for either of them to win, because that could add stakes to the feud that they're definitely about to have. But they are very definitely coming out of this with a bigger, more well-rounded feud, and we're going to see, as you mentioned, we're going to see it evolve. We may even see something interesting like Fénix mocking the casual gimmick and trying to be more like Orange Cassidy, which would be, in my mind, quite a funny thing to watch.
Yeah, who knew we would get a Orange Cassidy in 2020 out of all things that happened? If you were to start this year and say, what great is going to happen in AEW, the names Rey Fénix and Orange Cassidy would come together. But they've actually been entertaining in a short amount of time. And I like how they've played off each other. I think it's actually done really something amazing for Fénix to be showcased as a singles competitor, and also with Orange Cassidy. We've seen that a bit with Pac. Yeah. As far as being able to have a program with a wrestler, but it's also different, more of a lucha style personality. And Phoenix, you're right. I mean, it could also help him showcase his personality a little bit more. We've seen him in more of a serious mode with this, the Lucha Brothers and the Death Triangle. But maybe we can get some things out of this program, this feud with Orange Cassidy, that adds some charisma, adds some personality that will help in the long run become more of a well-rounded performer.
And that would be awesome.
That's what I'm hoping
because,
for.
Right now, Phoenix needs it. Definitely more than Pentagon. He needs that time to build up charisma and the personality with the fans and reactions to the camera. He's really figuring it out. I think this is the beginning of Phoenix's vault into stardom.
Well, to your point, that he does have a little bit of a learning curve ahead of him, but he's working with a very talented bunch of people, and he will definitely pull something out of this. But I'm looking at the clock here, and it looks like it's time for us to hit the Lucha Central.
Yes, sir. We are now going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo with this week's Lucha Central.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a look at all of the great shows available this week on the Lucha Central Podcast Network, where you can always find each show on its own or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network for every show in one easy feed. Things this week kick off on Monday, May 18th with the premiere episode of The Mask Cast with Dos Hermanos Lucha. Find out just who these crazy mask collecting brothers are, a breakdown of the types of masks you can collect, and some hints on authenticating ring-worn masks. All this and more on the premiere episode of The Mask Cast. Tuesday brings the debut of another new show. Though this one may be familiar to Lucha fans, the Mask, Max, and Mayhem podcast was essentially the unofficial, official podcast of Lucha Underground during the groundbreaking TV series run on the El Rey Network. Now the gang is back together exclusively here on the Lucha Central Podcast Network as they head all the way back to episode 1 of the show and each week take listeners episode by episode, not only through what went down then, but new perspectives gained by hindsight. Expect guests on the show every now and then as well. Thursday, we've got new episodes of Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco, with special guest Mask Republic President Kevin Kleinrock as they talk his starts, XPW, Wrestling Society X, the launch of this very podcast network, and more. For our listeners who prefer podcasts in Espanol, Thursday also brings the latest episode of La Mesa de los Márgaros, where you never know who is going to pull up a seat at the table. Fridays are for the Lucha Central Weekly in both English and Spanish. LC Weekly is your one-stop podcast for all the top stories of the week, along with details on what not to miss out in the week to come. And finally, next Monday morning, don't miss the debut of The Business of the Business, where listeners will get an inside perspective on what goes into bringing fans officially licensed merchandise of your favorite luchadores and pro wrestlers. Interviews with artists, merch companies, and wrestling executives themselves take you inside the process like never before. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms. And please be sure to give a rating and review to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Okay, sorry about that. I got a little distracted thinking about the shows that are coming up. The Mask Collector show actually was really fascinating this week.
I want to check that out. I haven't had a chance already to listen to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of awesome podcasts on the network, so definitely advise listeners to checking them all out.
So we are to the point now where I thought we were going to maybe have a week off, but MLW came screaming back with more Lucha content. They put up the Anthology series, which was a bunch of older episodes, some of which had been shown on the air, many which have not. And the first episode, according to their promotion on it, I should say, we've only seen this one episode, but the first episode was all about La Parka, or LA Park. And we got two great matches. We got one with him and Shocker, and then we got one with Sabu. Both of these are fantastic matches, and I was super excited to watch them both.
This was a Park we don't really get to see anymore. He was high flying, his knees great. He just got around better. We're used to kind of a hard hitting, brawling Park now, but in these matches we really get to see the classic Park that everybody grew up with, and we also get to see an incredibly hardcore match for the second match.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, with the choices of the two matches, you get a lot more of a full and robust picture of what he's all about, because you have a very neat kind of more technical lucha match with Shocker, and then you have the death match feud with Sabu. I love both of these. There's a lot of it's up on the website. There's a lot of good content that is gonna be coming out of the anthology series, and we will be covering it on the luchacentral.com website as well. So please, if you haven't watched that, go ahead and go check it out.
Yes. Also one page, so you can view that on from YouTube or luchacentral.com directly. So I wanted to take a few minutes to explain an important day that happened. Dusty and Brendan will help chime in. I'm just here to provide a little bit more of the historical context to it. But back last week was a special day in Latin America called Dia del, which translates to Teacher's Day. And it's a day that there to celebrate the all out there. It's dedicated in recognizing pretty much all the hard work that teachers of all capacities do throughout the country, and just to have people thank them for all of the work and dedication that they provide to their students. Brendan, I know you specifically saw some really cool things on social media of luchadors honoring their maestros on this day.
Yeah, so I saw many individual luchadors commenting on their personal maestros. They very always expressing the gratitude. That is something we've talked about before, that the part of the Lucha Libre culture is that you are representing everyone that has come before you, whether it's your blood family or the person that taught you. And so there was a lot of respect. I saw multiple shout-outs to Connect and one of my favorites, Solar, and then AAA had a wonderful shout-out to El Apache, which is really, he was a very crucial trainer for them for the majority of the later half of his career there. And so it was really wonderful to see them recognize someone who was in front of the camera. He was probably not anybody's favorite wrestler, but behind the screens, he was a lot of people's favorite person.
Yes, and I think was it you who gave me an fact too about speaking of maestros and maestras in this case. That Lady Apache is the only female trainer in Mexico.
That's my understanding. My sources have said that she is the only one that we've seen teaching any classes, either at the Arena Mexico or at any of AAA's areas. I don't know what they're calling them. They're not dojos. But I thought that was great, and that they brought that back to. We were talking with last week with our guest about her being one of his favorite teacher. So it's a nice little thing there. Very, very important that she gets that recognition.
Yes, yeah, I think it's wonderful to, again, this day in particular, we have this too in the United States, Teacher's Day, I believe it's in October, but this day in particular in Mexico is just a way to honor your elders, those who have taught you, as Brenda mentioned, formal and informal teaching roles. This day began in 19, so it's had a long history, and it's just, again, another way to celebrate the long lineage too of wrestling family and the purpose that they've served in really being able to teach a new generation of luchadors. And so it's days like this that it's just very cool to see that, not only online, but just to see people within the lucha just honoring their maestros and maestras and those who have had an impact in their career.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I have been waiting for this moment, so I'm going to right now I would like to say my thank yous. He's not my personal profe, but Jose Luis Gomez from Lucha Libre Volcanica up here has been a wonderful educator for me on Lucha Libre culture. He is the head instructor at Lucha Libre Volcanica, and I wanted to take a moment to personally thank him for all he's done over the past 10 years.
Well, that's a nice shout out, yes. And you brought some terminology. I mean, there's the formal term for maestro, teacher, but you have profe, which is short for profesor, profesora, professor, all of that. So that's your little weekly Spanish lesson for everyone. You probably didn't think about that in the English, but we're going to throw it in there every so often because why not? We are talking about Lucha Libre. But I think that's an awesome shout out because again, that's the legacy. That's how Lucha Libre continues to grow, how we honor the past, we acknowledge the future, and we look forward to many things. Speaking about acknowledging the past, though, I do want to hand it off to Dusty because he has a really important related story to.
Yes. Unfortunately, this past Friday, news broke in Chicago that luchador and trainer Discovery had passed away after a battle. He was only 54. He wrestled in AAA for several first as the Azul Power Raider, which was their Power Rangers themed group, and then he became Discovery when Saban to AAA, and he joined AAA's Los Cadetes del Espacio, and he was on a lot of shows with them. They had a quite popular run. He was even on WWE Raw and Shotgun Saturday Night in 1997. By the mid-2000s, wrestling and training in Chicago. And he was responsible for training such notable talent as Kalisto and Mustafa Ali from WWE, and Golden Dragon and Chico Suave from the independent scene. On behalf of us, send our condolences to all the loved ones and fans.
And following that, we're going to throw it back to luchacentral.com. So if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, now is the time to do it. LuchaCentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard from weekly polls to annual awards. Seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. But on top of all of that, it's free. LuchaCentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Now it's time for This Week in Lucha History. Be sure to check in at LuchaCentral.com every single day for This Week in Lucha, or This Day in Lucha History by Pep Carrera on the History tab. This week, my first mask I ever owned was an Ultimo Dragon mask. So I had to go Dragon, this Tiger Ali, for a mask versus Hair de Cuestas match. But I highly recommend the entire show. I the only one I find on YouTube is in Japanese, so I couldn't understand a lot of the calls, but it was great. And the card is stacked. It's a mix of Ultimo Dragon students from Toryumon. Probably didn't pronounce that right, but it also has Japanese talent like Io Shirai and several CMLL luchadors. The match before the finale was Gran Guerrero, Rey Bucanero, Ultimo Guerrero versus Atlantis, La Mascara, and Marco Corleone. And so, like I said, it was a super stacked card. You go into the match knowing that Ultimo Dragon, but I mean, it's his show, and he knows and so he really puts on a fun match. Archangel de la Muerta was there. O.T. Fernandez, JC Navarro, they all run in and try to cost Ultimo the match, but Akabono and Marco Corleone show up for the save, and he does an amazing cradle during the distraction. I don't know the name of the cradle, but it's amazing, and it's won the match. If you check it out, you'll understand that Ultimo is just the master of kicking out at 2.9 seconds. And this show was also kind of for Torimon and CMLL wrestler Magnus. He came out and what he called an homage to Pentagon Jr., but Pentagon and Taya were calling it an outright. So you should check out the history of this show if you're interested in more information. It happened May the 22nd, 2015. Sometimes it helps to search by the date to find the results or the video because it can be a hard one to find.
So
that is a great one.
Week, I haven't seen it yet, so I definitely need to check it out. I was going to interject just with my date. It isn't a full, well, the match itself, I chose it more significance of what it meant for this particular person. I chose May 19th. The reason I chose this particular date or this particular event in his, which was Rey Mysterio winning the WWE Championship for the first time in his career, beating Samoa Joe at Money in the Bank in Hartford, Connecticut at the XL Center. The reason why I chose this was more on the significance of Rey Mysterio finally becoming a Grand Slam champion in the terms of the WWE, winning every major title they have. And he is second, not so much luchador, but really the second Latino wrestler get this title after Eddie Guerrero. And I thought that it was a really great way for him to cement his career within that company. I mean, Willie Mack talked earlier about WCW and how the cruiserweights had such an impact on WCW, and fans really started to watch WCW. I mean, you heard of the big names, but they really started to build a fan base because of the cruiserweight. And when Rey Mysterio came to what they call the Land of the Giants in WWE, I think there was a lot of skepticism at what he could do with it in his career there and how long it would last. But he's had a career there. He's been able to win so many titles and be in WrestleManias and just also be able to be in so many amazing programs. We talked about his career even last week in reviewing Money in the Bank, and I just thought that the fact that it almost took that long for him to be cemented in history like that was a surprise. I think a lot of people thought, oh, he already was a Grand Slam, but that just happened this year. So to me, it was just significance as a fan of Rey Mysterio, as a fan of his work, of the fan of just what he means in this business, and to be able to cement himself within the WWE like that, I thought was a really great way to think about that day.
Yeah, I agree that it was super important, and as you pointed out, it went well under the radar. They didn't. I don't think they even mentioned it that he was a multi-champion while he was winning it. I think they were kind of keeping that under their hat a little bit, and it's a fantastic cap on a legacy that hopefully we have a few more years seeing him in front of the camera. But I think that you are absolutely right. That was a great choice. I went with something a little less significant for an individual, but I really wanted to talk about some of the more unique formatting that you'll see in Lucha Libre. So I went with May 18th, just 2 years ago, 2018. Volador Jr. and Flyer winning the CML La Gran Alternativa tournament. The tournament itself is usually it's gone on for many years. It's usually a veteran who is being paired with a young up and coming star, and they participate in a tournament. For the first few years, it was a one-night tournament. More recently, it's been a 3-night tournament. This particular one was exciting for a number of reasons. The finals had Volador and Flyer, obviously, as they won, up against the team of Ultimo Guerrero and Templario. This would have been, had he won, this would have been Ultimo Guerrero's fourth win in this tournament. He won once when he was a rookie, and then he's won 2 times since then. It was a fantastic match, and I absolutely was enthralled watching it the whole time. But I mean, so I wanted to share that and mention, like I say, the uniqueness of the format. This is one that is already on luchacentral.com and on their YouTube page, so it will be very easy to find. And I believe some of the other ones are on there, possibly even that rookie win he had with Blue Panther, Ultimo Guerrero and Blue Panther, that in his first alternative.
Yeah, that's I love reading a particular article on luchacentral.com every week because I learn so much as someone who's still more on the early cusp of Lucha Libre. As far as my depth and knowledge, this has been a really cool way of getting to so many different aspects of Lucha Libre within celebrating the biggest face, heel moments, promotion, and I've really enjoyed hearing both of yours because it's all 2 very different aspects and segments of Lucha Libre, but all part of the culture and this area of wrestling that is really important to remember and to honor, to explore. So if you are interested in learning more and wanting to follow this day in Libre history, you can do that by luchacentral.com. It has its own category tab, so you click on history if you want to keep it short, but there are a lot of videos as well, so you can straight embed it in these articles. You can watch right then and there some of the matches that we've been talking about, and we're going to be bringing this to you every week. So feel free to share with us some of your favorite days in Lucha Libre history. Let us know what was important to you, what days that you liked this week on social media. Now,
absolutely. Tag me in any of those.
Tag Brendan, tag myself.
Yeah, tag all of us.
Tag all of us. No, your thoughts. See if they're different somewhere. And maybe you come up with some really interesting dates that aren't on there that we discuss in your shows. So now a quick commercial from one of our partners, thechairshot.com.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
And always use your head for not getting hit with a chair in the head, because that hurts.
I've never had that experience. Knock on wood again. I didn't know to do that a second time tonight, but you know what? It's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, no, avoid it as much as you humanly can. I mean, obviously, if you, in the world of wrestling, it may not always be avoidable, but do your best. I would like to finally get to talk about the NWA. We've been mentioning it for a couple of weeks. They are an American promotion with a lot of very American wrestlers, but they do have Thunder Rosa as their women's champion currently, and in the most recent episode of Power, which is what we got 2 weeks ago, as opposed to Carneyland, which is what we got this week. They're 2 very different shows, and we maybe talk about that if we have time. But on the Power episode, they set up Thunder Rosa in a triple threat match at the Crockett Cup, or whenever they reschedule this triple threat match, with Thunder Rosa defending against Allison Kay and Melina, which you've got Thunder Rosa herself is an amazing hybrid luchador wrestler, MMA athlete, and then you have Melina, who is a very important person in the community of female wrestlers in the last decade or so, and Allison Kay, who is powerful up and comer. Actually, I shouldn't call her an up and comer. Main event for a while.
Yeah, former champ herself.
Yeah. For those of you who might not be aware, Thunder Rosa bears a striking resemblance to Cobra Moon on Lucha Underground, but I don't think I've ever seen them in the same room at the same time.
Right? I don't. Yeah, I've never seen them in the same room, but very, very similar.
We've had
features.
a couple of those on the show.
Yes. No, Thunder Rosa is just a sight. She is athletic, but she has amazing talent and charisma with the way that she enters a ring. It's fun to get inside the ring with her, and she starts to beat you down. She takes what she does very seriously, but she's also proud of her heritage. A lot of times in shows will come with her flag, with the way that she dresses. I'm very excited that she has this platform with NWA, and I'm glad that the NWA is has put the belt on in recognition of her talent. And I think that this is opening a wider door for the NWA. I think traditionally you just think of NWA as being primarily Southern territory with people looking kind of the same, but they've had a fairly influx of diversity since they've relaunched back last October. And that's something I've been impressed with.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with the changes in presentation. There were some obvious hiccups on the way, but they're still sticking true to the roots. So classic fans of NWA Southern Style Wrestling have a lot to watch. But there's no reason that you can't have like the women's division is very emblematic of what you've got there. What you can do, because you have Thunder Rosa as the champion, you have Melina as one of the top contenders, and you have different women that represent vastly different styles that are in the division everywhere. Like Allison Kay is not really a Southern style wrestler; she's got a lot of borderline strong styles to her. So
you're absolutely right. And even like a Marty Bell. Yeah, no, Marty Bell in there. I mean, I think that they have a case for a really just strong women's division, and even, in general, they're bringing in more diversity to their weekly shows. I appreciate that, because it shows that they're trying to make efforts in reaching a larger audience. Again, I mean, the NWA will always be such a historical promotion, and it carries so much weight within the community, but you have to evolve. It truly is a case of evolve or die. That comes in with bringing in more diverse talents of different skill sets, of different ethnicities, of different styles. And again, having Thunder Rosa as your women's shows that is what they are trying to do. Hopefully that's something in the long run, and we see more of that in other aspects of it, but especially in the women's division, I am really excited about what they're doing, and I'm really excited about their roster so far. Yeah,
it's a very exciting roster, a very exciting division. That's why I've been so excited to talk about this and bring it up. But I can't say enough about Thunder Rosa herself and just how excited I am to see her getting this spotlight, the same as you, because I've seen the work she's put in. I've seen for anyone who isn't following her on any of her social media, she's very open with her life and her training, and the struggle is real. Like there's you don't just see the high moments in there. It's not always a fun time, but it's always emotional and important to when you're watching what she's doing. And
even just the process, she documented a process, a U.S. citizen, last year, and it touched me as a wrestling fan, but she is a trained athlete, a mother, she's a champion. I mean, she's so many, and I absolutely echo what Brendan, haven't seen media, go ahead and follow it, because she is hilarious. But she also shows so many aspects of her, not just, the pretty pictures, it's the work and dedication she puts into her career.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a video, it's an old one, I mentioned this one before. You spend 20 minutes and this is the edited version of it, just watching her walk around town trying to flyer and get people to come to the local indie show. And by the end of the day, she looks exhausted, but, we only get 20 minutes of the video, and it's more than enough to get a picture of just how hard she worked.
Yeah, she's one of those exceptional talents. You feel like she's really getting rewarded for all the hard work she put in. And so many times you feel like somebody, they got their spot because she got her spot, but she worked hard. She worked to get there, and she shows that effort and determination, like you guys mentioned on social media. I think you see a lot of it in her matches, that she's just determined to be there and to be the best and to be the champion. And everything she does, she makes it look effortless, but it's so nice to get a peek behind that curtain and see the effort that goes into it.
Absolutely. And in that respect, too, back to her social media and the effort, she is currently putting up more things now to promote herself as the champion. So she's definitely putting a lot of respect towards keeping that product open and available to fans even right now. So, okay, I think we've gushed on how wonderful Thunder Rosa is long enough.
Yes.
So
Yeah, official mini fan club just got started here, I guess. But that's okay. That's what this is about. But also, you did mention, we talked about NW evolving, and one of the things that they introduced this week was a new show called Carney Man. Billy Corgan's team on social media, and he mentioned this was something that he'd been wanting to do for a while, something different. And it sure was.
Yeah, different is definitely the word for it.
I loved it. I was a big Smashing Pumpkins fan in high school. I saw them at the Granada in Lawrence, Kansas, like a little dingy one time. It was awesome. Big fan. So, but if you had told me then that Billy Corgan was going to make a wrestling like half tell-all, half parody show, I would have been so excited for this and couldn't have expected how interesting it was. It wasn't what I expected, but I really enjoyed it. It kind of had like an SCTV feel. And, like kind of sketches or little moments that it had. I loved True Carney. We don't often get to hear those stories of the wrestlers being ripped off, the kind of negative, strange situations they might find themselves in. Not necessarily negative, certainly strange situations they find themselves in on the road because of it. And I would love more of that and kind of the first-hand account, explain some of the hilarious things and common scams that have happened to wrestlers on the independent scene.
That there's definitely been enough proof with older wrestlers doing podcasts and other things of that nature that people are hungry for these stories of the bizarre days on the road back in the day. So I was very interested in a lot of that, and I really enjoyed just that you also get to see the wrestlers have with their personalities on, but also slightly dialed back so that they're kind of more approachable or kind of relatable. It's still Eli Drake. It's still Allison Kay. It's not.
But it was like a more realistic version.
Yeah.
It was really, we're in a time now, too, where pro wrestling, and even Lucha Libre, there's elements that you peel the curtain back a little. And I think that that's going to be something interesting, going back to the original topic that we started with what the landscape of pro wrestling is looking like now, with shows possibly evolving to not be in front of crowds and having to manage that. You are producing other content to still keep people engaged, and this is a great way for NWA to do that. Also to introduce a variety of wrestlers to a new audience. I think the concept itself is pretty funny, and I'm very interested in what the future shows come. And I know we said we would stop gushing about Thunder Rosa, but I also said this is going to be a good show for her. You've already seen her. She has personality. She has charisma. She do some great stuff here. So I hope that we see her in a future episode and see something different with her.
I do too. I think she would.
Yeah.
I think she would have a unique female perspective on some of the true Carney Land stories and stuff like that too. That would be extremely interesting to hear as a fan. As a female wrestler.
She's also worked as a promoter, so she will. She can tell you stories on the other side of it where maybe the wrestlers were trying to be a little more Carney to the promoter.
Oh, that would be really cool too. Yeah, I would love to hear that.
I just think it's really interesting content, and it's a great way to keep fans engaged. Do you see anyone in Lucha Libre, the promotions out there, out of all of them, produced a Carneyland-esque type of show, if there was one.
Sammy Guevara. I mean, I don't know if AEW would let him do it. But
oh my gosh, that would be incredible. Yes.
Absolutely.
He would be incredible.
He's really, really funny. I don't know. I mean, we mentioned this earlier. I hope even with this program with Orange Cassidy, maybe we see some more personality in Rey Fénix, and we see more. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a hard thing to balance because he's in, a really aggressive, super intimidating group like the Death Triangle, but I think it's also important too, especially in AEW where comedy seems to take you far, that if you can transition in between those things fairly easily, that it can take you a long way in your career.
Did you guys ever see the video he did, Helen Trains a Wrestler? It was hilarious, and I really think that Sammy Guevara could, he can do comedy so well, and kind of surreal comedy, and I think that he would do something so perfect for the fan, and I think that Sammy Guevara would be a huge choice. And I think it's easy to forget now as things have kind of evolved, but at one time somebody like Zack Ryder broke out because of his internet presence, and that's what kind of got him name recognition amongst the masses. And so I think that it would be for somebody like Sammy Guevara, who has that charisma, who has a great look, who has famous friends in the inner circle, who has been everywhere and wrestled everybody, to put on his own little show and have people come on. And somewhere between Southpaw Wrestling and Carneyland rather, and I think it would be perfect. I think he's got the star power to make it work.
Absolutely.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. We've reached the end of another edition of Lucha Central Weekly. Thank you for joining us. Before we sign off, I'd like to let you know where you can find us. I'm Miranda Morales, and you can find Instagram and Facebook at #Miranda. Dusty, find you.
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our lovely...
I'm on Instagram and the Twitters, 321 T-shirt guy. Also, as we discussed previously, I've even changed the profile. I am now accepting messages for #Miranda. So
yes. So go ahead. I'm not on Twitter. So go ahead and leave any messages with Brendan. He'll relay them to me, and then we'll have a discourse through Brendan. We'll work on the legalities of that later. But yes, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. Of course, this podcast is part of Lucha Central, luchacentral.com, to get all of the information in what's happening. Lucha Libre. You can follow Lucha Central on Facebook and on Instagram at Lucha Central. And on Twitter, @CentralCom. Of course, there's a variety of videos, a YouTube page, lots of great matches, interviews, and content that's available 24/7, 365, and it's all for you. We mentioned the history tab on there as well for this day in Lucha Libre. Results of shows also be posted, interviews. Again, all that's happening at Libre, luchacentral.com, your place to go. And as far as the weekly podcast, we are available on all of the podcasting streaming formats, iTunes, Spotify, Speaker, Podbay. So go ahead and subscribe, rate us, review us. Yeah. And which one?
Rate us. Be sure to leave that rating.
Rate us.
Yes. And then tell us all the things you love and hate too.
Yes, I want to hear your feedback. Let us know what parts of the show you like, what maybe you're not a big fan of, maybe we won't. Doesn't really matter, but it's from you. So go ahead and subscribe, follow, review, all of that on all of the different forms where you can stream podcasts. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back here.
Respetable público, lucharán a 2 de 3 caídas sin límite de tiempo. En esta esquina, el Santo y el Tabernario. Y en la esquina opuesta, Lunemos y el Mundo. La arena estaba de bote cavernario, luz demonio y buzón. El santo es cavernario, luz demonio y buzón. Y la gente comenzaba a gritar. Sirenas vestidas sin cesar. Métele la disco, métele la vuelta, la quebradora y el tirabuzón. Quítale el candado, pícale los ojos, jálalo del pelo, sácalo del ring. Métele la disco, métele la vuelta, la quebradora y el tirabuzón. Quítale el candado, pícale los ojos, jálalo del pelo y sácalo del ring.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Masked Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to Lucha-Masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at Lucha-Masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.